What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the corner. Dub's Corner, the only corner where we're selling statistics and knowledge and not dope and pussy. Um, Today we are it's going to be a little bit of a quick one. We're going to speed through Big 12, Big 10. I really don't have any ACC to talk about today. Well, we got Notre Dame, Pitt, but then we're going to get into some of these SEC games that have absolutely shaken up playoffs. SEC, they just, on top of I have my new bracket. I did not know last week that we were doing conference champions get the bye. So we have updated to the new format, to the new seeding. So let's pop right into it. First off, we had Minnesota going to Eugene to play number 8 Oregon. Just as we thought, Oregon takes a win 42-13. Dante Moore had 306 yards on 27 completions and 2 touchdowns. Jordan Davison had 2 touchdowns of his own on 57 yards. And then Kenyon Sadiq, welcome back after they struggled without some of their stars against Iowa. Kenyon Sadiq comes in 8 receptions for 96 yards and a tutty. Oregon bounces back with 510 yards of offense after a dull game against Iowa on the road. Next, we've got UCLA going to the Horseshoe to play number 1 Ohio State. Once again, another team that really ain't doing shit. Ohio State gets a win 48-0. Julian Sayin, 23 for 31, only 184, a touchdown. Isaiah West had a touchdown. James Peoples had 2 touchdowns. They had 4 rushing touchdowns all day. Jeremiah Smith, only 4 receptions for 40 yards. I mean, man. The most interesting thing about Ohio State's offense on Saturday was the fact that Bo Jackson, a new Bo Jackson, was 15 for 112 and a touchdown. I mean, that's just, I don't see. The only reason I see them in Indiana, number 1 and number 2, is for the sole purpose of they're undefeated, So, speaking of the devil, we have Wisconsin going to Bloomingdale, Bloomberg, whatever the fuck it is. Indiana, number 2. Indiana had 388 yards of offense, 300 yards through the air. Mendoza only had 2 incompletions this whole game. 22 for 24, 299 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Defense only gave up 168 yards all day long. Only 98 of them through the air. So one thing this defense has done is shut shit down. So the offense is good, but they're not playing, up the caliber defense. But this defense does actually, these linebackers do interest me here. Next we got UCF. Indiana wins 31-7. UCF went over to Lubbock, played number 6 Texas Tech. Tech gets a win 48-9. Texas Tech had 500 yards of offense again. This offense looked exactly like what it looked like in the first half of the year before this loss and before Baron Morton started dealing with this leg injury. 294 through the air, 205 rushing yards. They also had 4 rushing touchdowns. Like I said, like the beginning of the year, they had 11 different guys with the reception. They pulled Bear Morton early. He was 14 for 20 for 149 and a touchdown. Cameron Dickey, the running back, 11 for 77 and a tutty. Reggie Virgil, another running back, 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 receiving. And then Douglas, the receiver, 5 receptions for 90 yards. They're probably going to play BYU. Let's be honest. They're going to play BYU again for the Big 12 championship, a rematch, and they stomped them a couple weeks ago. They've got West Virginia left on their schedule. That's it. They just got to win. So, next we've got. I can't stand the fact that we're fucking talking about this team, because they did start the season 0-2, but they have battled and they have won the games that they needed to win, how they needed to win them. They have handled the teams they needed to handle. But we have number 9 Notre Dame going on the road to play Pittsburgh. Number 22 Notre Dame thrashes them 37-15. The freshman C.J. Carr had 2 turnovers. I mean, he's going to be a problem, fellas, this C.J. Carr kid. I am a fan of C.J. Carr. We've got... They held Pitts to 0 for 13 on third down, which is just astonishing for the fact that Pitt was ranked, coming into this game. Notre Dame's offense had 387 yards, 212 of them through the air, 175 of them on the ground. Jeremiah Love had 147 of those 175 yards. Malachi Fields was 7 for 99. He had 2 tutties through the receiving, and then C.J. Carr 21 for 32. 212 and 3 touchdowns. Had 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown, and the 2 picks like we talked about. They have Syracuse and Stanford left, and they don't play a conference game. I very much think they're going to be in the playoffs. I don't like it. I think if anything, they shouldn't be any higher than 10, but we'll talk about that in a second. I think they very much will be higher than 10. But as a Dog fan, like I said, we'll talk about it in a second, but as a Dog fan, I don't believe that I have much to talk about because we might be in the same boat right now. And then we have number 12 BYU. We just honorable mention because they might slip in there depending on conference championships and all that. TCU going on the road to Utah to play BYU, losing 44-13. Bear Bachmeier had 300 yards through the air, which is not something that he's really done all year long. They're more of a running team, which they did have 3 rushing touchdowns. They're more than likely going to be playing Texas Tech, a rematch. They had 477 yards of offense, so they definitely are trying to prove something to somebody, But let's get into some of these SEC football games. Texas A&M erased a 27-point halftime deficit, which at the time they had a 97% chance to lose going into the locker rooms. Second half stats that stuck out to me where they had an 80% completion percentage in the second half, had 4 second half sacks. They had almost 300 yards more than South Carolina in the second half alone. Altogether, they had 500 yards of offense, 339 of them through the air, 64 on the ground. They forced 4 turnovers, including a scoop and score. They had 4 sacks on Lenore Sellers, all of them in the second half. They took a lead after a 99-yard touchdown drive with 10:30 left after being down 27 at halftime. That alone is impressive. They were 2 for 11 on third. Now, that has been an issue with a lot of SEC teams this year. So they are not they 5 for 11, 4 for 13. Like so many of these teams, and they're starting to be an issue. Marcel Reed was 22 for 39, 439, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, and a fumble. The Marcel Reed I thought was going to come into the season is who showed up in the first half of this game. the wrong throws, sloppy, but they pulled it out. KC Concepcion, 7 receptions, 158 yards, and then Bethel Roman, 4 for 139. He would have had a touchdown, but the boy cramped up on the 15-yard line, rolled over at the 10. So, very impressive. I don't believe that they went down in the rankings for the sole purpose of it was that much of an impressive comeback. I mean, just, that is insane. That first half was, the last 5 minutes of the first half was enough to put a lot of teams' dick in the dirt and just be like, fucking, I mean, it was just turnover after turnover after score after score. So, they get out of there 31-30. Next we got number 4 Alabama playing number 11 Oklahoma. Now Oklahoma gets the win 23-21. Bama still had 400 yards of offense, 320 yards passing, but they only had 80 yards rushing. Now they only had 60 against LSU. They just have struggled on the ground. Jam Miller is nowhere to be found. Daniel Hill was 15 for 60 for 2 touchdowns. Ty Simpson, 28 for 42, 326 and a touchdown, 1 pick. He was sacked 4 times. I believe Alabama's only shot to the playoffs is winning the SEC. I think a third loss in that SEC title game is going to put them out. OU, man, Oklahoma. The defense of the first 6 games of the season is who showed up to play this fucking game. I think if this defense shows up for the rest of the year and they shut shit down like that, like this Missouri offense with a backup quarterback and an LSU team with no coach and no quarterback, I mean, I think 100% that you can't not let them in, which we'll talk about in a second. They won only having 212 yards total on offense. Total. Forced 3 turnovers, including an 87-yard pick 6. And not to mention, they went down to Tuscaloosa and got a win. I mean, that is impressive, man. It only had been 12 games since it's multiple seasons, 2 seasons since somebody's gone down there and beat Bama's fucking ass at home. Florida coming on down to Ole Miss, losing 34-24. Ole Miss had 538 yards of offense, 301 passing yards, 237 yards on the ground, and 224 of those were Kewan Lacey, going along with 3 touchdowns. The man broke the Ole Miss single-season rushing touchdown record in this game with his first touchdown, and then added 2 more to stretch the record. They still have a whole game left, so that is very impressive. He's been lights out the last, let's say, 5-6 games. He's just on top of Trinidad Chambliss doing his job. They've been phenomenal. They were 5 for 7 on 4th down in this game. I don't understand why that jumps out to me, just for the simple fact of, I don't know if it's more impressive that they had to go for it and succeeded 5 of 7 on 4th, or the fact that they had to go for it on 4th, 7 times. But with that being said, Trinidad Chambliss was 26 for 35, 301 with a touchdown and a pick. And then Stribling, honorable mention, 4 receptions, 76 yards, and a tutty. We'll move on down to number 10, Texas. Came on down to Athens, played number 5, Georgia. Georgia has been phenomenal inside the 30-yard line. I mean, they just, teams will storm down the field. They get inside that 30-yard line, and they just cannot move the football. teams will quickly move down the field and then finish their drive with 3. Multiple times that has happened this season with Georgia, so I can applaud them with that. On top of, they're kind of vulnerable up the middle when it comes to passing. Just that second level is not up to par, so we're going to have to tighten that up. Mike Bobo is finally just getting the ball to playmakers like Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, Zachariah Branch. I mean, they're just giving kids the ball and letting them do what they can. So this is definitely a new offense in the last 4 games. A rejuvenated, figured something out. Sacked Arch 3 times. We only had 9 sacks coming into this game. 350 yards of offense, 229 yards passing, 128 yards rushing. Nate Frazier was 16 rushes for 72 yards. Noah Thomas, the freshman, with Colby Young out, him and Williams have stepped up, but Noah Thomas with 2 more touchdowns. That's 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. The kid's balling out. But nobody is balling out more for the University of Georgia more than Gunnar Stockton, who was 24 for 29, 229 yards, had 5 touchdowns, a career best 4 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown to go on top of that, and 1 pick. Sloppy pick in the 3rd, but opened up the floodgates after that. They get the win 35-10. With that being said, boys, let's move on to the bracket. I'm just going to name my seeds, and then they will line up with whatever. I've got 1 through 4. I've got Indiana, because I still think they're going to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. I just think that's happening. I think Texas A&M will win the SEC championship, and because Ohio State lost, they are going to put Texas A&M at 2. I think Georgia will be 3. No conference game. They're going to move Ohio State to 4. So we've got Indiana 1, Texas A&M 2, Georgia 3, Ohio State 4. 5, I've got Ole Miss, another SEC team, the 3rd SEC team. I don't believe they'll put 3 of them in the top 4. Number 6, I've got Texas Tech. I think they're going to stay exactly where they're at for the rest of the year. I've got number 7, Oregon. Not going to be in the conference championship, but I think the offense has looked phenomenal. I think it looks very much good enough to be in the playoffs. So I think we've got Oregon at 7. I think we've got, and here we go, we've got Notre Dame playing Oklahoma. So 8-9, I've got Notre Dame, Oklahoma. I think both of those are floppable for the sole purpose of Notre Dame doesn't play a conference championship, so they could just penalize them for that, passive-aggressively taking away a home game. It's 1 seed spot. And then number 10, I've got BYU, who would be taking on Oregon on the road. They'd be going to Eugene for a playoff game. It's cold in Eugene around January, boys. And then I've got Georgia Tech at 11, slipping in there because I think they're going to have to throw an ACC team in there. I do think that Georgia Tech might slip in there, depending on what Georgia does to them in the next 2 weeks. And they'll be taking on Texas Tech and Lubbock. They'll be taking on the $25 million offense. So, and then at number 12, I've got the Group of 5 team at JMU. Honestly, taking on Ole Miss, going to Oxford in January. So, boys, it's been fun. Let me know what you think about the bracket. I don't know how well it will show up, but that's it, boys.